You do the best.
Yeah. This is Pitchside Prospects, episode 20.
20, man.
Yo, and we have a guest here today, Tori. Forgive me if I
Hello.
got that right.
Yeah.
And we're, yeah, I haven't really introduced myself yet, so we're kicking off right
Wait,
off
so
the
what's
bat.
your name?
My name is Zach. What's your name?
I'm JC.
Yeah, okay. And yours?
I'm Tori.
There we go. And so this is Pitchside Prospects, and we're one episode away from a 1%er.
You love this. You love this statistic.
Consistency is everything in life to me. And so, just the fact that we're still going and we're one away from being a part of like a 21 episode small category of people who make it there, that's a good thing. But yeah, that's really it. It's Monday morning. What is it? February 19th.
Oh, that's what I like to do, but sure, you
Yeah.
took it over from me.
Sorry, And what? The club world is on its way back into motion. Real
Hey, we've
quick.
got. I don't know about you guys, but me being still in playoffs, still have one more week. So maybe you guys still have club on the horizon, but me and my school, we're still fighting for a championship. We're fighting for a ring right now, and then we still may have state.
If you made it all the way, when's the final?
The final will
Finals
be
Friday.
this Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well,
Is it
for
Saturday?
open, for
Oh,
being the
open.
top
Oh,
division,
got it.
we get a
Yeah,
special
yeah.
day. Now you can kind of see my character, like me being a little bit more on the Jose style.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
winning
I didn't pay
top
much
team.
attention to Open because I was D1, so.
Well, you're right. That's way better than where I'm at. I'm D4, and happy to be there too. We're good with it. We're appreciative of what we got, and in the D4 league, I still have competition. That's all that matters to me. It's enjoyable all the same.
All right, but it's enough about us. We have a very special
Agreed.
guest, ex-professional player in Europe. Iceland does count as Europe.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank
How are you
you.
doing today?
I'm doing good. A little nervous because I've never done this before, really, but it's
We
a
get out
new
of our
exciting.
comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was telling my boyfriend. He was like, yeah, push yourself. I was like, okay, I got it. I definitely love the challenge of building myself and getting out there and exploring, and coaching is definitely a way to do that, meeting new people, connections, and just building and expanding my world and view of things from different point of views, especially after this season on a new challenge of coaching the boys side for the first time. So it's been fun, and there's always more to learn, and I'm excited for that.
1000%. Before
Yeah.
we get into your coaching experiences, let's start off with your player experiences. Who is Tori the player? Who was she?
I am a goalkeeper.
Okay.
Nice.
I didn't switch to goalkeeping until I was 14, though. So I started as a forward / midfielder playing on the field. I grew up in Escondido, born and raised in Escondido, so I'm a native to San Diego. I played for FC Heat when I was 8, and then moved to RB Renegades, which is now SDSC because they merged with Pegasus at the time. And this is making me sound very old, but and then once that merge happened, my coach tried to get the entire team to move to Surf, SD Surf, but they were going to make us the C team, and he didn't want that. So I went and got a connection with Albion SC, and Noah Gins took over my team and played for Noah through my graduating years at high school, and then went off to Cal State Bakersfield, Division I, played there for 4 years, and then coached there before I went off to play to Iceland.
Wow.
So I was a grad assistant for about 1 season there, and then took a tryout with PSC Academy, which is Pro Soccer Consulting, and Simon is the director of that, and he connected me to coaches and scouts out there, and was picked up by one of the scouts for an Icelandic team that got promoted from their first league, which is in Kosovo, into their Premier League, which is the Pepsi League.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What was that
So,
team called?
Hoikar.
Hoika.
Yeah. So
Do you know? Do you speak? I don't even know the language that they speak
it's
over there.
Icelandic.
Okay.
They have their own alphabet and language.
Wow.
It's derived from the Nordic alphabet, which came from Norway and is mixed now after the Vikings decide to settle in Iceland. And it's a very interesting language. It's very tongue twisting. They
Yeah.
have at least 6 more alphabet letters different from ours. But they also don't have 2 of our alphabet letters, which I want to say is W is definitely one of them, and I want to say X is the next one.
It's an
So,
interestingly, whenever I hear it, it sounds strong.
Yes.
It's a very strong sounding
strong.
language, for whatever reason, if you could give it a connotation. German is another language I give that strength.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like that.
I think German's a bit louder
Okay.
than
Oh,
Icelandic.
tell me about it. With the Rhine game.
I wouldn't know.
I think German's a bit louder than Icelandic, but it's definitely a strong language, and it's only known to that country. No one outside of that country knows or learns it because it's very difficult to understand and to be able to understand each word, because they have a double L that makes like a clicking sound, and it's like back in like your deep throat, like
That sounds
and then-
way harder than the Y in
Yeah.
Hispanic culture.
Yeah.
Just think of double L like,
Slide a little bit over this way,
sure.
just to make sure that you stay in the frame. You know.
Ah.
You might as well just sit on his lap.
Right? I'm gonna just.
Whoa, okay, calma. Okay,
He's
ojo.
gonna say offsides. Oh man.
But this is what I love about the podcast. You know, we're able to even learn about languages. I
Absolutely.
wouldn't have ever thought we were going to talk about Icelandic.
Yeah.
But
So
awesome.
Haukar was the first team that I played for, and they're in between. They're not exactly in Reykjavik. They are outside of Reykjavik, and it's a little town called Hafnarfjörður. And so when we landed in there, we landed in Keflavik, which used to be a military base for World War II, and they switched it to the airport now, and that's their main hub. So when you fly from here to Iceland or to anywhere in Europe, you'll stop in Iceland for about a week or 2, or maybe 2 days, but usually people kind of stay for a week and then fly out to wherever their main destination is in Europe, because they want to experience Iceland. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful country, beautiful people, very welcoming. They all speak 2 different languages, at least 3. So
Wow.
when they're young, they learn Icelandic from their parents. Then when they get into like elementary school, they learn a second language, and they can pick from anything from English to Dutch to Norwegian or German. And then if they want to continue that in their secondary school, they can add a 3rd language to that. So most of them usually learn about 2 languages at most.
Were you
That's
kind of
awesome.
forced to learn Icelandic to be able to be part of the team, or was all of the coaching done in English?
No. So what they would do is before a game, we'd get prepped and everything, and they'd go through the game plan. So we were in our locker room, and I had a roommate for my first year, which made the transition easier from being brand new to experience a whole new country.
Yeah.
And being somewhere that's technically isolated because it's a small little island.
Yeah.
So it was definitely an intimidating experience, but as long as you keep an open mind, that experience will flourish. And so when we would get prepped for game days, we would go into the locker room before we'd go out to warm up. He'd bring the team together, speak in Icelandic, but then pull my teammate and I aside and translate everything for us that
Oh
was
my
said.
gosh! Wow.
So it was easier for us to be able to understand what the game plan was for that day and then go from there.
No,
But
that's really
basically what the coach would do was like, you're the goalkeeper. You have full reign and control. So we trust you and believe in you. And me being the oldest on the team, it helped me transition to be a better player as a goalkeeper, giving my experience in the U.S. and trying to help them develop, because the average age for those teams were probably around 18 to 19 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like what would you say was like the youngest player that was on that team playing
15.
professionally? Wow.
15.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a
So
big difference.
so it was also like a good experience, like not only as a player but like turning into a leader,
Yeah.
which like kind of led you into like more like preparing as a coach as well.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
It was definitely there. Some girls were a little bit more quiet and shy because they didn't really understand English very much, but they would always ask me questions, and I'd be able to help them through the process and guide them and be able to, as a goalkeeper, I believe as a goalkeeper, they should always be communicating and talking. And I feel like now that I'm coaching goalkeepers and coaching teams, I get a little frustrated because the goalkeepers are silent most of the time or very quiet.
Tell me about
It's
it.
like the two people that can see everything are you as the coach and the goalkeeper sitting behind everything.
Yeah.
So they should both be quite communicative throughout the thing, you know?
And honestly, in Iceland, if you tell any of the teams there, they were like, they'd pin me out because you were the goalkeeper that never shut up. I got that from a coach. You're the goalkeeper that would never shut up.
That's a good thing. I take that rep. That's a good rep.
I'd rather be communicating and organized than not say anything at
That's
all
fine.
and have goals scored on me. So, catch 22.
Yeah,
here.
no, you take that rep, you run with that. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You got Tori Wanted out in Iceland,
Yeah.
the screaming goalie that wouldn't shut up.
Yeah.
Was there I have a couple questions based off of what you said. The first question we already asked one of our other interviewees, and it was, what would you, Tori, now tell Tori that's 10 years old, any advice, if you could?
The
I worded
advice
that so bad. Sorry.
the advice that I would give to my 10-year-old self is to keep continuing on and pushing yourself to your limit, and to voice your own opinion at times, because there were times where I would kind of just sit back and let things happen and work out instead of going after what I wanted. In pivotal moments that probably could have changed my career for the longevity of it. Unfortunately, the way that it panned out that I'm no longer playing there is that my visa got screwed up. And I'm not bashing the club. And it wasn't with Haukar, it was the second team that I played for out there. And it was just a miscommunication, unfortunately, with some misinformation on paperwork between the federation and the club and me, and I had to come home early for the third season because technically I was illegal there because my visa wasn't working. Like, I couldn't apply for it. And that was due to the prior season of not playing on a visa. But the club and the federation didn't catch it. So that all happened, which created a darkness in that standpoint of my time. I came home very depressed, feeling like I had lost everything. And I'm not trying to tear up, but it took a bit of my soul out because it's something that I always worked for. It was always a goal that I wanted to get to that top level, that I wanted to be there on that top stage. And that's how I was. I sacrificed a lot family-wise and social-wise to be able to get to where I needed to be at that time, and to just trust the process. Things happen for a reason, and it's turned out to where now I've transitioned into being able to give the younger generations my experience now and be able to help them develop and go reach for the goals that they want.
Well,
It's still a pretty tough loss, right? Because
Yeah.
like it's not something that of your doing.
Yeah.
And that's where you're accomplished. You spend all this hard work trying to accomplish this dream, and you're there and you're living it. And then for something to happen where it's a miscommunication, it's not necessarily in your hands or
Yeah.
your performance, then all of a sudden cuts it short. Like it's got to be really hard,
Yeah.
to
I'd-
accept.
I'd also tell my younger self to control what you can control.
Yeah.
And that's prepping and working and being there in the moment of what's going on instead of always trying to reach for the future and make something happen, which is uncontrollable because we don't know what's going to happen in the future.
do you think you reached your max potential like as a player, like, or do you think you still had some juice in the tank to like keep on pushing?
I still had juice. That third season was my pivotal season. It was the best season I was playing. We were basically, when everything happened, we were second to get promoted into the Premier League at that standpoint.
That's awesome.
And then everything happened and they couldn't reach that promotion because I had left, unfortunately. And the coach wasn't too happy. She was upset by the whole thing, and she, a week later, left the club as well.
Oh wow.
So it was definitely a big transition, and at that time, I was still wanting more. And my, I guess, not really agent, but my advisor had been trying to reach out to other clubs to where I could go back to the U.S. and then come back and finish out the season with a different club. But unfortunately, it just didn't pan out. And then I was on the verge of signing a 4th year with a different club in the same league. But a week before I was going to get the papers to sign the contract, COVID hit.
Ooh.
And it was 2020, and COVID shut everything down.
Like you're not
So-
traveling anywhere. You're not going nowhere.
No,
You're going to
that
stay
entire
right
country,
here.
That entire country shut everything down.
Yeah.
Like no one was flying in, no one was flying out. It was just a big, which threw me deeper into the darkness. And it was a really rough time because nothing was happening.
Yeah.
Soccer-wise here or being
Anywhere
able
in
to
the
get
world.
out. Yeah,
Well,
anywhere
not
else,
where I
just
was.
to get out.
I was
Like-
balling. We were playing. We were training. We were traveling.
You're lucky to be in my house with that shirt.
I'm
to
just
be honest.
saying.
To be honest.
I was one of the few blessed during COVID to still play and travel and coach.
Yeah.
I was very
And
blessed.
so everything kind of just downshifted from there. So I ran into some financial problems after that and made a shift into the corporate company world for about 2 years to get back on my feet. And then came to decide to turn myself to coaching when everything opened back up. I started at Poway Vaqueros for 2 years. Coached there, coached little ones, 2013s, coached the babies. Had a pretty good solid team. And then I got moved up to the high school age group, which was a combination of 06, 07s, and 08s. And that was a struggle because we were the bottom flight in a very small club that's very independent of everyone else that's in Poway. And was there for about a year with that group and then went off to SDSC and made the move because I wanted to improve as a coach. I felt like I had plateaued at Poway Vaqueros and wasn't going anywhere and wasn't getting the necessary help to be able to achieve the goals I wanted. And so I made the move, and SDSC was welcoming with open arms. I know basically almost all the coaches there because I grew up with them. And it was an easy transition and decision to make.
I like that point that you brought up where you felt that you had plateaued and then you didn't stay there. You actually felt the need and you took the risk to make the jump. What would you say to like players that, I don't know, maybe are feeling that plateau or they don't feel that they are in the right place? Because I feel like depending on the coach that you play for, depending in the club environment, you may not be flourishing where you are at. What would you tell those people that are in those situations?
I would tell them to start looking somewhere where they're going to feel like they're going to flourish. Start jumping into other teams, practice with them, see how they feel. Whether it's higher, lower, or rebuilding a team, just take that chance, because you never know what could happen. You can either, because that chance won't always stay there. It'll be taken by someone else. So if you don't take that chance, then that chance is gone.
I love that.
It's like chase uncomfortability. It'll lead to more
Yeah.
learning lessons, right?
The more uncomfortable you are with the situation, the more you grow as
Are you
a
getting more
person.
comfortable now in front of the camera?
Yeah.
It's one of
Yeah.
those things that, like, as you sit in it, it slowly
Yeah.
but surely settles in.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we've been doing it now for almost 4 months, and actually is a really good reflective process for the way that you're, like, creating your perspective around coaching and what you're trying to create and do.
Yeah.
Because as a coach, like, you know, we live every day really fast. We make a lot of decisions. We're defining who we are as coaches, and then also how our teams play. And we don't necessarily, I'm not saying for everybody, spend time with ourselves reflecting on our own past history and current process, you know?
Yeah.
Because that leads to what? Who you're going to be as a coach, and that's really important. You're always trying to grow and change, stay uncomfortable, and that will teach you to grow more, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those things that I've definitely felt a plateau in what I've coached now for 7 programs in 10 years, and I've felt a plateau at a vast majority of them. The only few that haven't have led to situations where I've left early out of my own accord, and so that can feel like a loss sometimes.
No comment?
No, that is the comment. There's no depth needed in that, but it's the whole process, you know. I love, like, whenever you find a new place and you're surrounded by coaches you know, but also you can learn from. That's everything to me, because that's how you know, like, in the next few years you're gonna continue to, like.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more things based off of Tori Player.
Yeah.
You being obviously a girl, how is it like being coached by a female versus a male?
My preference, I prefer male coaches. That's my preference, just because they push me, and I'm not afraid to get yelled at because I had a military dad. So
Okay.
being yelled at is, and it's not so much just screaming at someone, but it's making sure that they're on point and that they're focused, and the way that it's a male dominated business, basically.
Absolutely.
And there's not a lot of females, but the female can connect more. I feel like there's more understanding from a female coach, because they know exactly what you're going through, not only physically but emotionally and mentally. That I don't think male coaches understand those two
Definitely
very
not.
well.
Definitely not.
Males are wired just to get this done. Like, if you guys have beef with each other, you just scream at each other or punch each other, and then you're done with it and you're friends. Yeah. Girls, on the other hand, aren't that way. We're meaner. We go for, like, right at the emotional strain, like, heart. Like, if you don't like someone, you're never going to be friends with her. You're just, it's that way.
Straight to the jugular.
It's just cutthroat. Like, there's nothing around it. Like, no matter how much you try, it's really difficult to try and gain an understanding from it. So that's why female coaches are very pivotal for definitely, like, the younger age groups for girls, like probably around the under 10s to under 13 age group, because puberty's hitting. There's a lot of emotions going on for them to try and work through, and their bodies are changing. And now they're basically they're middle schoolers going into high school, and now boys come along, and all of that kind of stuff. Hormones happen, and it's a lot to take in, and I don't think that our male counterparts understand all that transition very well, and it's difficult.
That's a really in-depth answer.
You know, it's also interesting. I got one comment. It was like, I was sitting in with Jill Ellis with a surf summit recently. And she mentioned those exact words, that one, coaching is a boys club, and it's very kind of intimidating. And two, that we do need more female youth coaches in the world, because there's periods in a young girl's development that she needs that. But people are being deterred, and when I say people, females into the coaching world, because of how masculine it is. And I shouldn't even put these there. It is like that. It is totally a boys club in the way that you put it. But it's interesting also to hear that like you got on better with a male coach, because he was like, your upbringing was military, and you were able to hear that instruction at, how do you say, a louder tone, and not accept it and take it personally, but hear the instruction and follow it. And then one follow-up question would be and this is, I have to ask it, I can't not ask it, is how is Noah Gins as a coach?
Well, Noah Gins was an interesting person. He's definitely very business-oriented.
Yeah.
At the time, he had an exceptional boys team, and we were kind of just the follow-up team.
Do you know Dom Chavez?
Yes.
No way. Okay,
I trained with him on that team.
He was our first actual interviewer, or person
really?
we interviewed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So he was definitely way younger than I was, but when Noah took over, he took it over from Carlos the year after I joined Albion, and he's definitely an intimidating person, just straight up, and it's all about business and stuff like that. But what was good about him was that my team was an exceptional girls team at the time. We were the top team on the club, and we had Devin Marshall. We had a very strong group of girls, and goalkeeper-wise, there was 2 of us, and we were competing. And he challenged me to be better, because at that time I was at a pivotal point of trying to grow as a player. But there were certain steps that I needed that he provided, which he gave me extra training sessions. So I joined his boys. So I'd be training 5 times a week and then playing Saturdays and Sundays at the time. So I'd do my goalkeeper trainings with Wayne Crow.
Love Wayne.
Goalkeeper coach. And I absolutely loved him. And then I would go from there to my practice, which was after. And it was just constant training to get better, and seeing different things. And his boys team was the top team in that club at that time. And they were young. They were, I want to say, 2 years younger than I was. And training with them helped me learn the game faster. And my reactions became quicker, which made my game a little bit slower, which made it easier for me to be able to see the entire pitch instead of just looking what was in front of me at the time.
I like that.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so it definitely improved me, and he challenged me, which made me into the player that I was at that time.
Definitely intimidating, but a man who pushes to raise the bar every single day.
He's constantly building that program for Albion. He just started it. He was the director, kind of a young director at that time when I was playing, and he's just expanded it to
nationwide.
Yeah. They just added Colorado, 3 teams from Colorado. I was like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
I have one more final question for Tori Player. I know a lot of guys that they want to get more out of their soccer experience. They want to be traveling to other places and kind of doing trials and whatnot, and they feel like they're kind of stuck here. They feel like they don't have an outlet to, either they don't have an outlet or they don't know how or what step to take to actually go to Europe. What advice would you give those players that they feel like they maybe are neglected by scouts or they don't have the opportunity to go out there? What would you tell them to be able to actually try and fulfill their dreams? What steps?
I would tell them to do research, a bunch of research, get your connections, see if your coach has the connections, definitely ask those questions. I think what happens to players is that they get overlooked sometimes, and it can be a bit of a shock a little bit. But if you are really truly trying to get out of your comfort zone, you will find any way to get there, to get to your goals. So connect with people, connect with the coaches, connect with anyone that has been there before you and see what they did. And if it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, find somewhere else, because there's a bunch of agencies around that are popping up that if you just do the research, we have the internet?
Oh,
That people don't
really?
are always on, that they don't seem to use it for the right things. And they're all, social media is a big platform for that. And if they find those connections through the social media, they'll get to where they want to go. But the step is for them to actually take that step and go through that door. Because a lot of people are scared. They're always scared of change. And having an open mind and being able to push yourself and be like, okay, well, F it, I'm going with it. You never know what could happen. So just take that leap.
Yeah, research and take the leap. I mean, I would say that a lot of people struggle at finding the connection, but football's the people's world.
Like,
It's just
PSC emailed me through, contacted me through Facebook, and that's how I got connected with that. And then I took that trial, because we were just playing in front of them for 3 days, took that trial, and then got that connection to go out to there. So it's just a matter of you going forward with the connection that is in front of you and then making it what you want it to be.
I would say, as a player and a coach, networking in football is there.
Yeah,
because
probably
there's
one of the biggest
Yeah.
things.
small world. Even all the way across the world, be
It's
connected.
basically 5% play, and basically the rest of it's administration and connection and social networking. It's a big business base. So you basically are a player 5% of the time, but the next 95% of it is everything else behind it. But you have to talk. You have to voice your opinion. You have to make those connections.
I love that.
Yeah, I find that brilliant too, because everybody talks about the 5%, the playing, and how you have to be so great at your trial and all this. But if you don't follow through with that part, it's going to be meaningless.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people that bring the attention or importance to that part. They're like, hey, always focus, especially the player. How did I do? How am I going to play at the trial?
And it's also not just the player, it's also the parents too. But the parents have to take a step back sometimes, because it's the player's journey, not theirs. And I think that's where it gets lost by the parents. And that's the thing that I'm trying to work out with my club and forming this third team for SDSC on the 2011 side. It's difficult, and the parents want more for their kids, and I completely understand that. But sometimes you have to let the kid decide and see where they want to go with it, and let them do what they want to do. And then that pushes them out of their comfort zone to make those connections instead of the parents doing it for them.
I saw this video from Pulisic where he was talking about his teacher in elementary school, and the teacher asked him hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Pulisic was like, oh, I want to be a professional soccer player. And the teacher was like, no, what do you mean? You got to be realistic. How are you going to do that? And the interviewer was like, oh, I hope you saw that. I hope you've seen that guy.
Yeah.
Since that happened.
Well, you want to prove it, right? The interviewer's like, don't you want to have let them know, hey, I did it.
What's up? What's up, teacher?
Right? But that's why I would think you go backwards and say, well, sometimes the player does have to decide.
Yeah.
And if the coaches around them have also kind of said, it means that maybe there's some worth there, because me and this guy are saying leave us to go for that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying stay here and play for us. We've looked at it and said, well, you're 16, you're a great player. There's opportunity there to be exposed to top teams. Maybe you should take a leap here. And now it's out of our hands, because it's to the family to decide.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part sometimes. The players should know that they should advocate for themselves in that.
Yeah.
They really should.
So, let's transition to coaching now. Tori, what do you let me start with this. I first saw you when you were in a playoff game coaching a boys team.
Yeah, that is
Now,
correct.
how do you feel being a woman in the boys game?
Intimidated. Very, very intimidated. I can tell you it wasn't an easy transition, but I was excited for the challenge. And to me, as a person, to grow, you have to accept challenges that you're faced with. And that's the only way that you grow. Because if you keep running from them, you're just going to be in the same spot all the time. And it's just going to be a cycle repeating itself. Until you decide to change that cycle is when you actually grow. And it was a decision that I made that I thought I could rise and really compete with that challenge and develop as a coach, not only for the girls' side, but see what happens to being a female on the boys' side.
I love that.
What would you say was your biggest challenge this season as your first season as a boys coach?
I'd have to say my biggest challenge was forming those connections with the boys that have had the same coach for about 20 years or 4 years as they were playing, and the same assistant coach for the last 3 years. Being brand new and brought in is very skeptical, especially being a female, and I talked to those players that were there, especially the 2 seniors that were our captains. And he said we were very skeptical. We didn't know who you were. We didn't know how you would be incorporated in all of this, if you were going to bring the same intensity as the prior assistant coach. And
I'd say in the first half you did. And then we'll get to that later, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
But they were, after the first few weeks and after the first couple games, I think they settled in and were appreciative of me coming in and not changing anything that they were used to, and not being any different or too emotional over things. I think that's where the boys get a little bit skeptical, is because females bring a lot of emotion, and I'm very passionate about what I do, and sometimes my emotions do get the better of me, and I will scream and yell to make sure that you are doing what you need to do, but then I also turn around and cry because that's just who I am as a person, and the emotions get too much and it just bursts. But I had to be able to learn how to control that, to make sure that it didn't look like I was just weak and couldn't handle the challenge.
I'd say I emote the same way. I honestly, like I say, I emote in a very similar way. Like, and that's kind of part of it, because intensity, football, and passion is what you need.
Yeah.
And football is emotional, the game
Yeah.
itself. So just because maybe females they could be defined as more emotional or not, like I don't feel like it affects the intensity or the passion of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that what those boys are saying is like, well, you brought the same level of intensity, and there's a respect to that, you know. And I also think that, how do you say, young teenage boys in this world could use more of that from a female coach, because then they start to respect the female gender with more like care. You see females as people who could work within the field of sport and even lead them, brings it more to a human level than a gender one. And I find that very, like, when I was listening to Jill speak, that's one of her major points about needing more women in coaching, whether they're with girls or with boys. It leads to a more like understanding and accepting culture, well-rounded.
Yeah, definitely towards the end of the season, there was more of a connection with the boys, especially the younger ones that are coming back for the next year. We were very junior heavy this year, and definitely freshman heavy. We don't take freshmen unless you're an exceptional
baller,
or
yeah.
you're going to play, is basically what it is. If you're going to play and you're a freshman, you have to be that top percent. But with graduating 17 last year to a team that now has not much leadership that it was missing for this year, and we as a program don't allow our younger players to be captains and leaders. We usually give that to the seniors because the senior's not going to want to be bossed around by a junior. Like, that's just them. It was definitely a big transition year for the program, especially when the head coach had retired and decided to come back, not even like 3 months prior to that. So.
Whoa, that's a double shake up. Shake it up by retiring. I'm gonna shake it up again by coming back.
Pulled a Brady.
That's a double.
I ain't done yet.
I don't know about that. I would not be happy about that. That'd be something I'd be upset about.
Bailey, we got a guest.
Yeah, in my house I have a big old husky. So actually this.
Oh, hey Bailey.
Hi Bailey.
Oh, hi. Kitty.
You going to come on camera? Yeah.
What's up, Bailey?
Camera.
What's up? Oh, you're excited.
Say hi.
Hey. Oh.
Hi, Bubbas.
I'm never gonna kiss from you.
Hi, Bubbas. You're so excited.
That was wet. That was wet, buddy. Because like even and just to like expose, like me and the other coach that was there, we were like, how would we feel as a player like with a female coach? You know, that's something that you don't really see on a day-to-day basis, but you being like an ex-professional player, that definitely gives you like a pedigree as to where imagine if you had not played professionally. Yeah. Would they still have that respect for you? Like, would they still value like what you bring to the table, even if you were saying the same type of like things?
Yeah, and that's the question that can't really be answered because I did do what I did, and there's always what ifs. What if I didn't take it and I stayed on the girls' side and I would have just done the JV, and my girls would have been happy, but would I have grown as a coach at that point? And it was a matter of not only was it basically a promotion from coaching freshman girls the year before to now coaching varsity, and
that's going from like 0 to 100.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. To being an assistant coach for varsity on the boys' side, it was a non-negotiable kind of thing for me. I think I grew a lot more this year as a coach than I would have if I had stayed on the girls' side.
I love that. So just so you know a little bit more about us, obviously my name is Jose. I love Jose Mourinho, and I like to be the person.
Sorry.
I love to be like heavy metal football, like very high intensity, and also be very personable. Be very personal with my. Why are you exposing me, man?
Burn time whenever you can.
Why are you exposing me?
Pressing refs.
What did I do?
Nothing.
He likes to keep the ball and not do anything with the ball and make sure that he's a very positional possession, and I'm more of like a
I just want you to be sure that you know how I see you. That's all.
Perfect. And so now that you kind of understand how we are as coaches, like very polar opposites, what is your ideal coaching style that you wish your teams played?
I personally, as growing as a coach, my style of play is very progressive. So very side to side, keep the ball, basically keep away to move it forward and get those players forward to the goal. Because I feel a lot of teams, especially the professional league here in the U.S., is very point blank from goalkeeper to forward, and that's it. There's no style. There's no risk taking. There's not enough. We have athleticism, but there's not enough creativity that these players use. And I feel like the players that we have, especially on the youth side, we're so focused on results that we're missing out the progressiveness of a team. And the parents and the clubs all want wins, and I get it. You want to win because kids have more fun winning, right? But I think we're getting lost in the transition and missing out the creativity of it. And I want players to feel like they can be creative on the field and be exceptional. Like the Messis and the Ronaldos and all of that, and be more European-based soccer than U.S. soccer, and make a combination of the two. And try and fill that. Yes, there's times to go forward. Yes, there's times to make that direct ball, but it's not always a 90-minute thing. And I think that's where we're getting lost. It's a complete 90-minute running up and down the field, and then we're constantly having to make subs because our forwards or our wingers are dying because they're making 120-yard sprints every 2 minutes. And so I feel that the pitch is 120 by 80. We can use all of that space and move the ball faster than the player can actually move. And I think that's where we're starting to get lost in. Emma Hayes just became the U.S. national team for the women's side, and I believe that is the best hire because she can bring that European influence into a team that's just athletic and start actually creating creative points of forming those triangles and diamonds in space and moving the ball side to side more than up and down.
I'll give you one of these.
I was going to say, she's probably falling in love right now, positional possession.
Yeah.
But
That's what I teach.
Right, so this is my little critique. When I went to go watch your team play on Friday, it didn't seem like you guys were doing much of that.
Because we don't have the players that have the mindset of that.
Okay.
So the problem is if you don't have the players that think that way, then we can't do the progressive standpoint. And that comes from practice. When you start training it in practice, then you can play that way in games. But the problem is that most of those kids, whatever clubs they're with, each coach has a different philosophy. And most of them are pretty direct. And unfortunately, it's a habit that is really, really hard to break because it starts when they're here.
Oh, and especially now that they're 15, 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
It's already built in their brain pressure, kick it out.
Yeah.
Kick it long.
I think that the athletic kids are always coached to reactive and actions, right? And the smaller technical kids are usually taught based upon situational awareness. It's both technique with the ball and controlling of the ball, but being aware of your surroundings. Until we can get all of our players to be cognitively aware and use their athletic talents at the same time, just being able to make decisions at fast pace rather than just following your athletic spirit, which is when you're reactive, you're following that, you're following that, you're following that. You don't get to choose and decide because you're not aware of all the options that you have.
Yeah.
And so if we can teach a kid from 13 and onward, even younger, 8 and onward, how to slowly think about each situation and what advantages and disadvantages are available within them. By the time they hit 13 or 14, and now we have a player who's hitting their athletic stride, who's fast, who may be strong, who's tall, whatever it is, but knows the game in a greater depth besides just what I call the intervention zone, which is all the players within the zone where the ball is. He can understand the game and even maybe the mutual help, which is the medial zone. All the players in support of the people interacting with the ball and their head down. And he can do all of that while he's in the game on the ball because he's been taught situational awareness over reactions, over speed, over height, over, the normal things that players are taught and utilized as they're growing up in America. And I say utilized because coaches do that so they can win more games. And if you taught a player at a young age how to think, you might lose more games, but you're going to do that player better off in the future once he's left you. And don't get me wrong, winning is important, but winning like this with situational awareness and finding the right moment, there's a difference to that. It feels really, really good when you outplay the opponent and outthought them. Because you make the game simple, and soccer is kind of simple. It gets complex when we start to think about all these extras. But my dad, who never knew a thing about the sport, was like, you just got to put that ball in the net? Yeah, that's really it. He's like, and if you do it once, that's enough to win? I'm like, That could be it, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think Messi and Ronaldo are so successful on the field?
Messi, because he's like he thinks. I think Zidane said it. He thinks 3 chess moves ahead of everyone else. And having the chessboard here, it's nice.
Because he's using the biggest organ we have, which is his brain. That's why he's walking around. He doesn't need to make 120-yard sprints to chase after a ball. He already knows where he's going to go with that ball because he's looking and thinking. He doesn't need to necessarily physically do anything. He just has to be in the right spot at the right time because he's thought of it beforehand, because he knows where 4 to 5 players defensively are around him. He knows he has this technical space. He knows he can connect that pass. But the problem is that we are so focused on the physical athletic side and finding the strong, fast players that we don't teach the thought process very well. So we're more here than we are here. So we have to figure out a balance between that. And if we can try and connect both of those and make an athlete, but that can also think in the process, then you have your superb team. And they all have to be on the same level. They have to understand as you grow. So when you go from 7v7, they're just learning technical stuff. They're tactics. Okay? 7v7's all technical, getting the touches on the ball, trying to connect a pass and all of that. 9v9 moves up to the tactical portion. But that's where we lose the thinking part. Because we're so focused technically here, they're still trying to grow tactically here, and once you lose the technical here to transition to tactical, you lose all of it up here.
I have a hard opinion to accept, which is I think the 9v9 game really messes a lot of things up.
Yeah.
And the reason is the field is too big for the 9v9 players to cover all the ground. The goal is too big usually for the goalkeeper standing in the goal. So if you hit it in the foot or above, it's a goal no matter what. And it's because we say, we're trying to get them to adjust to the space they're going to play the 11v11 in. And realistically, like anytime I'm watching a 9v9 game, I'm thinking to myself, like, there are better ways to handle this. You know, the players aren't able to even protect the goal in which they're playing on. And the players aren't even able to necessarily cover the ground that they're playing on. But what does that do is it incentivizes fast kids in the 9v9 to play forward more often, because if you play the ball in behind, it's a goal.
He's through.
Because if he's through in all that space, he can run, and if the keeper comes out, just put it right over, high. If I kick it high, it's a goal. Now this kid gets all the way to 15 years old, and what did he learn? To run fast when the through ball is sent, and to shoot high when the ball is one-on-ones. That's a generalization to a T, you know, but this is kind of the way that we raise players in America, and it could be an issue. And we go back to, like you said, Cristiano and Messi. I think that Messi obviously was raised in the right way when he came to Barca, like critically thinking and situational awareness. But one thing both those guys had was an extreme amount of talent that they were born with, athleticism. Messi was the dribble, one-on-one. You just can't take the ball from him. Cristiano had height, speed, strength, and shot. But if they didn't leave at an early age and go to professional organizations that taught them to be situationally aware, they would have never been generational talents.
There was one story where Ronaldo, he got picked, or his friend got picked over him to be in the
I read about that.
in the sporting academy, and his friend actually sacrificed his spot for Cristiano.
And said, "You're better than me."
Yeah.
So you go.
Imagine a child doing that for his friend. That's insane humbleness, insane belief in that other person.
I had one moment like that in my club where my best friend, Brandon Vincent, got pulled to a pro team at the time. And I remember thinking, sorry, Brandon. Why not me? Why him? Not me. You know, I wasn't all proud for him, at the time. Now, of course, I am. And he played with Chicago Fire and Schweinsteiger and had a great, short, actual professional career before he went into business. But, I remember that day where he was pulled out, and I was, sitting in the car with him, and he's telling me all about it, and his mom at the time. And I'm bitter about it the whole time. I was like, I'm just as good as you, man. Little things like that,
Yeah.
you don't forget. But I love him to death. That family too. His little brother Jeremy, but good people, good player. Both-footed, played for Stanford, eventually won
Not
a
as good
national
as you though,
champion.
right?
At the time, we were only 14 at the time. By the time he was 20, though, he was winning national champs with Stanford. So, and I was winning state conferences at Stanislaus. Big difference. big difference. Although we were both winners, he was doing it at a whole nother level. You know.
I've got enough, like one probably final question from me on the coaching aspect. How do you approach big games, either knockout games or big league games where it's a must win? How do you approach the team in the build up to that big game?
It's a matter of putting your pieces where they work, right? It's like solving a puzzle. If it doesn't fit here, we'll move it to here. And that's what we did this year. The big games like Del Norte and all of that kind of thing, it was just a matter of getting the boys properly prepared. They had a tendency to lack in the preparation portion of it, like their minds were elsewhere between like school, girls,
etc.
And but when it was finally down to that match, all that focus, as soon as they crossed the line, that's their entire focus. And as a coach, Gene and I would discuss what would be best to work formation-wise. Who do we put here if we're missing a player? And it was difficult. Gene usually plays with a 3-5-2 system.
Mm-hmm.
I switched it to a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Are you sure? I've never played this, so you're taking hold of it." And we ran with it. And that's the faith that he had in me as a coach. And it worked for our system because we didn't have the wingers with enough pace like last season to be able to keep up with a 3-5-2. We didn't have the defenders. The defenders we have now work better for a 4 in the back of flat and then 3 and 3.
Did you make that change at the beginning or at the playoff stage?
So the very first game we played a 3-5-2 and it was against, who did we play against? It was during the tournament and we got completely slaughtered. We were exposed. We also didn't have a couple of our starting players.
Still at club?
Yeah, they were still at club. One was injured, like our center defender was injured because he's dealing with some inflammation in his hip from kicking for football. And so club was going, the MLS next, you can't do anything until you come back. So we got exposed in the back.
I'm assuming down the wings.
Yeah. We definitely got exposed, so it made it seem like we had 6 in the back because our wingers were dropping all the way back and not building out the way that we needed it to. So I threw out of like, look, we have this personnel. Why don't we go with 4 in the back, a 3 in the middle in a triangle, and then 3 at the top. So basically it'd be a 4-3-3. And he was like, I've never done this before. We'll try it in practice. And so we adjusted it to that way, and it worked. So we played against Eastlake the next game. And we had the small midfielder that you really liked who had a lot of ball control. So Carlo came back, and our starting center defender with the long throw, Tyler Hughes, came back finally. And we beat them 1-0 off of an own goal. But
goal's a goal.
We were dominating. And because I suggested to make that formation adjustment, it impacted positively, which then we stuck with the entire time, basically. The only time that we moved it to a 3-5-2 was basically playing against Fallbrook because we needed to score and win that to be able to get the power rankings wherever we needed it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only time that we ever adjusted it back to a 3-5-2, but the 4-3-3 system was our biggest impact and strength. And I was excited that he actually took my advice instead of been like, no, I still want to do this,
Yeah.
and like fighting all of that. And the boys were excited about it too.
I bet your wingers
So-
loved you.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're not wingbacks. Now they're wingers.
Yeah.
I'm playing wingers, so
they
I'd
were
be like, yes, coach, yes.
As soon as that happened, they were like excited because then our wingers could get forward, because then that pushes our outside backs up higher to help in the forward and the attacking. Unfortunately, we didn't have our natural striker.
Yeah,
We struggled that this season, but I mean,
Necessary in a 4-3-3, right?
yeah.
That solo striker pinning the center
Yeah,
backs also
so-
needs to be a goal scorer.
It's hard because our striker that was at the top when you guys were at the playoffs.
Number 2.
Yeah, is just a football player. He's not actually a soccer player. And
I could tell by the way that he tackled my boy Owen. That was that was a football tackle to say the
He's
least.
strong.
Oh, yeah, he was
he's
strong.
a workhorse.
Oh, yeah.
He's fast. The problem is he just can't find the goal. And if he had scored that breakaway in the first half, it would have completely changed the game.
Oh yeah.
And we've had multiple games that way, and it's just we weren't a team that was going to come back from a 1-0.
No, and especially
Loss.
especially against Point Loma, I'm very fond of their program as a whole, because they know their identity. Their program from top to bottom plays the same. And I
That's
know
important.
and I
I
know
think
that
that's important.
if you give up the first goal, they're going to be a pain in the butt to deal with.
Yeah.
And then they're just going to be on you, not just in the game, but emotionally even
Yeah.
more. And so the first goal against them is really crucial.
Yeah.
And so I got to keep on respecting those guys, because they know like how to build a program.
We have a
Yeah.
few players that we've coached in club that play for them too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that game, it was just unfortunate. Like after the second goal went in, we decided to start playing and pressing, and it was just like, it's too late now kind of thing. But it's a lot of growing points, and all we have to do for next season is fill those 2 spots for those 2 starting seniors that are leaving, and we basically bring our entire back line and our goalkeepers back for next season, and
There we go.
we'll be a force to be reckoned with.
I hope so.
promise
I
you
hope to
that.
see you in Open. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
A couple final things. We were talking about the manager bounce a couple episodes back, and this isn't necessarily like a manager bounce, but it is a freshening up, because when you do something for so long, 3-5-2, 3-5-2,
Yeah, it
3-5-2,
feels a lot
sometimes-
like that. You can come in,
sometimes
you
it
make a
gets like
change,
stale,
you get
know?
success.
And sometimes it's like, well, we already know what's gonna happen. We already know. Oh wait, coach, we're doing 4. Oh, okay, 4-3-3.
I think the change-up is what really excelled the program this year
Mm-hmm.
and really stabilized the program.
I think also got you some buy-in from them.
I was
Yeah.
gonna
You know,
say
a little bit.
that too.
both.
There were times where I did feel a little underappreciated in my role from the boys, that I had to call out one of our seniors because he wasn't paying attention to me at all.
In front of the whole team.
Hell yeah.
Oh wow, that.
Right at
Hell yeah.
halftime on one of the games, he
That's
was
sick.
focused somewhere else, and I'm like, nope, you're focusing on me, because I was talking about his position and he's not even paying attention to me. So I was like, look, you have to do this to make this adjustment, and I'm going to call you out on it if you're not paying attention. Like, everyone else was paying attention to me and focusing, and he was the only one, and he's the captain of the team. And it's like, really, you're just going to do that?
Is your ego stronger than the
And
team? Don't you
so
want to win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a little difficult sometimes, because I didn't feel like I was really listened to by some of them at some points, and it was definitely a very inconsistent season between games. Like, we'd play very well one game against a very difficult team, and then when a very level team or easy team would come by, we'd just drop down, and it'd be like, why are we doing this? We should be beating them like 3-0, but we're tying them instead.
Point Loma.
So
My
They
team all year.
turn up. They turn up when they want to.
it was very hard to control and manage that from a standpoint, and talking to Gene and trying to talk, like, he had his frustrations, and sometimes I'd be like, look, just relax. okay, you're not going to get the same people as you had last year, and it's time to change things. And the system worked last year, but it didn't work this year. And when that adjustment happened, I think the guys felt a little bit more relieved and felt like they could play a bit more as a team, as a whole, instead of individually. And knowing that the head coach had confidence, in my opinion, on things, in my opinion, on certain aspects and what we would do and who would play where and switching players out in different positions, made it a lot easier and made the transition from the girls' side to the boys' side a bit more exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You got any final comments?
Yeah, I would say keep doing it with the boys. I think you're doing something that the country needs more of, and I would empower you to keep doing it because, well, you said you're learning a lot from it.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like the boys in this country need more of it, and obviously the girls as well. But more female coaches in this country is one thing that I think is amazing. And even hearing Jill talk about it for a period of time this past week, she brought a lot of insight to like what the male psyche in its teenage years could use from a female coach. And I think that's a really cool thing that you're doing, you know?
Bailey is definitely loved here.
We always got a dog in a podcast for some reason, right? We might as well keep it going.
He just has to show up, you know?
Some dog ends up doing it every time.
Always.
But and thank you for coming to talk to us. We appreciate your time because it's been wonderful hearing your experience as a player and as a coach. It's been really cool.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's definitely an experience that I'll always cherish and stuff like that, and always be happy to do, whether we want to form a scrimmage or whatever it is between our JV for next year or whatever.
No. My JV plays varsity team, sorry.
No.
Yeah, okay.
You wait.
I think you're going to get
so this guy
I tried to set up a varsity
have a
team
story
versus JV.
He didn't want the smoke.
Season already started, so scrimmages aren't allowed. That's the CIAF section ruling.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Our JV's always looking for a challenge.
We did. we beat him 3-0.
Who?
Just we.
You beat who?
Them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you play him in a tournament?
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
in
that tournament.
In the Parker Cup.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna play that tournament.
No comment on that.
Yeah. You had some issues too, didn't you?
No comment.
All right, and this has been Pitchside Prospects. Thank you for tuning in.